The story begins with a group of young boys riding their motorcycles through a forest. Suddenly, they spot an old truck parked along the road. They slowly approach the truck, unaware of the danger it hides. This truck belongs to one of America's most dangerous creatures, known as the creeper. The boys, however, begin provoking trouble. Luke, one of the boys, picks up a stone and hurls it at the truck's window. To his surprise, the glass is no ordinary glass. The stone bounces back and hits Luke on the head. Meanwhile, Kirk, another boy, starts investigating the truck and opens the rear door. What they see inside leaves them frozen with fear, a white bag clearly containing a human corpse. As Kirk moves closer to inspect it, a foul stench hits him, and he steps back in disgust. Suddenly, the truck's rear door slams shut on its own. Terrified, the boys jump onto their motorcycles and try to flee. But before they can escape, a sharp blade attached to a fast-moving rope shoots out from the back of the truck and strikes Kirk's leg. Despite their fear, his friends don't abandon him. They help Kirk stand up, supporting him on their shoulders, and try calling for help, but there's no signal in the forest. They attempt to pull the blade out of Kirk's leg, but it's embedded too deeply. Things worsen when the rope begins pulling Kirk back toward the truck. The boys are unsure what to do. One of them, the one riding the red motorcycle, panics and flees. The remaining two stay with Kirk, trying desperately to save him. Within moments, Kirk is dragged all the way to the truck. Terrified, he pleads with his friends to find help. Just then, one of them pulls out their phone, but before they can use it, a loud noise comes from above and a body falls from the sky, hitting the ground. Before they can react, a gigantic winged creature lands on top of the truck. Seeing the creeper, the two boys run for their lives. The creeper descends to the ground, opens the truck's rear door, and summons a spear into its hand. With a single throw, it impales both fleeing boys, killing them instantly. After retrieving his spear, the creeper places it back in the truck and prepares to hunt his next victim. He suddenly senses a strong scent, indicating that another human is nearby. It's the fourth boy who had run away earlier. Using his heightened sense of smell, the creeper tracks him down and kills him too. We then learn that the creeper awakens every 23 years and hunts humans relentlessly for 23 days. Later, the police discover the creeper's truck and decide to investigate. Opening the truck's rear door, they are horrified to find countless decomposed bodies and skeletons. The sight chills them to the bone. One officer reaches inside to inspect further, but triggers a hidden trap. A sharp mechanism springs forward and cuts off the officer's arm. The officers realize the truck is filled with deadly booby traps, making it impossible to retrieve the bodies. Sheriff David, leading the investigation, is deeply troubled by what they uncover. Soon, more police vehicles arrive, and we learn that a special government squad has been formed to capture the creeper. This team is led by Captain Dan. While Dan and David discuss the case, the other officers attempt to open the truck's door. Suddenly, a razor-sharp rope shoots out from the truck and narrowly misses killing Dan. The horrifying scene leaves everyone too scared to approach the truck again. David confides in Dan, revealing that the creeper has already killed 3 officers and several civilians. Meanwhile, the officers report that the truck has been towed away. Dan becomes furious, knowing the creeper will stop at nothing to retrieve his truck, putting the tow truck driver's life in grave danger. The team contacts Officer Dana and the tow truck driver, Frank, to warn them. However, by this time, the creeper, armed with an axe, has already arrived at the scene. With a single swing, the creeper breaks the chains securing the truck. Frank slams on the brakes, and the truck rolls backward, eventually coming to a stop. When Dan and Frank approach, they see the creeper standing atop the truck, glaring at them. To their horror, they realize the truck can move on its own without a driver. The creeper retrieves his truck and, surprisingly, leaves without harming them, laughing as he drives away. Relieved to have survived, Dana and Frank think the danger is over. But moments later, the creeper's truck returns. Frank is terrified as the truck stops a short distance away, but the creeper is nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, the creeper leaps down from the air onto Frank, knocking him to the ground. Dana aims her gun at the creeper, but he gestures, signaling that her weapon is useless against him. The creeper then grabs Frank and flies away, leaving Dana helpless. She can only stand in shock, unable to do anything. Shortly after, Dan and David arrive to find Dana hiding inside the driver's seat, trembling in fear. The next morning, we see a crow perched on the porch of a house. An elderly woman named Jillian steps outside and looks at the tree in her yard. She sees a figure gesturing to her. It's the spirit of her deceased son, Kenny. Kenny, 23 years earlier, had witnessed the creeper abducting a man. After getting out of his car to investigate, a severed hand suddenly fell from the sky. The hand belonged to the creeper, and despite being severed, it was still moving. Kenny took the hand home and buried it under a tree in his yard. Now, 23 years later, Kenny's spirit warns his mother to leave the town with her niece, Addison, or they will become the creeper's next victims. The next day, Addison goes to buy feed for her horse but is denied because she has unpaid debts. Disheartened, she begins walking home, but the shopkeeper's son, Buddy, who has long had feelings for her, decides to help. Without his father's permission, Buddy provides Addison with enough feed for her horse. Though embarrassed, Addison accepts his help and promises to repay him soon. On their way back to the barn, they notice several horses running in fear. Investigating further, they find the farm owner and workers hiding under a tank, terrified. It's clear they have witnessed something horrific. The farm owner urges Buddy to call the police. As Buddy heads to his truck to make the call, a bloodied man suddenly appears at their window, startling them. Before they can recover, a shadow looms over them. It's the creeper, who has come to claim the workers hiding under the tank. Hearing the tank overturn, Buddy and Addison realize the creeper is right behind them. They saw that the creeper had left the workers alone. When Addison and Buddy looked again, the creeper had vanished. Buddy quickly decided to start the truck and escape, but the truck wouldn't start. Suddenly, the creeper appeared in front of them, closing his eyes as if to sense the fear in the air. The creeper seemed more interested in Addison than Buddy. He suddenly flew towards Addison and used his finger to wipe the blood off the window. He began sniffing her, trying to identify her scent, and soon realized that Addison was his true target. The creeper let out a loud roar of delight, shattering the truck's windows. In one swift motion, he broke the window, tipped the truck over, and grabbed Addison. By the time Buddy could comprehend what was happening, the creeper had already flown away with her. The scene shifts to the creeper's truck. Instead of killing Addison, he throws her into the truck's cargo area and sets off to find his next target. Inside, Addison spots Kirk, the boy who had been injured by the truck's blade earlier. Since they were from the same small town, they quickly recognized each other. Together, they decided to escape before the creeper returned. Kirk knew the rear door was booby-trapped, so he planned to exit through the front. However, he didn't realize the front seat was just as dangerous. As soon as Kirk touched the handle, a high-speed spear shot out from the side, impaling him through the head. Addison was horrified and froze in fear. Meanwhile, back at the field, Jillian was still trying to uncover what had happened to her son, Kenny, 23 years ago. Ignoring Kenny's spirit's warnings, she dug up the creeper's severed hand and placed it on her table. She watched in shock as the hand began moving. Gathering her courage, she slowly reached out to touch it. Suddenly, the creeper's hand grabbed hers, lifting her into the air. Her eyes turned white and her body twisted in unnatural ways. At the same time, Dan and David were preparing to hunt down the creeper with their team. A team member, Michael, arrived with a heavily modified truck, equipped with a powerful gun capable of firing 6,000 rounds per minute. Michael was confident that this weapon would be enough to kill the creeper. Once the team gathered, they began their search for the creeper. Meanwhile, Jillian regained consciousness and called Dan and David to her home. When they arrived, she revealed that touching the creeper's hand had shown her its true story and origin. However, Jillian refused to share this information with them, and they didn't pressure her further. Determined to uncover the truth himself, Dan decided to touch the creeper's hand. David tried to stop him, but it was no use. As soon as Dan touched the hand, it grabbed him, causing him to pass out. His eyes turned white and his body twisted just as Jillian's had. When Dan regained consciousness, he was visibly shaken. When David asked him what he had seen, Dan remained silent. Meanwhile, Michael received news of an overturned car on Highway 9 and suspected it was the creeper's doing. Dan decided it was time to execute their plan to eliminate the creeper. Michael led the way, with Dan and David following close behind. Soon, they spotted the creeper's truck on the highway. David fired at the truck's tires, only to discover they were bulletproof. The bullets ricocheted off the tires and struck their own vehicle. David then aimed for the truck itself, but the same thing happened. The creeper, in retaliation, launched a bomb from the truck. Dan narrowly avoided it by swerving the car, but the bomb was equipped with a tracking system and came after them again. Thinking quickly, David shot the bomb mid-air, causing it to explode harmlessly. Michael, driving from another direction, prepared to use his special gun on the creeper. Dan, realizing the danger, urgently radioed Michael to stop firing, as the bullets would likely ricochet back at them. Unfortunately, Michael couldn't hear him and opened fire. As feared, the bullets bounced back, killing Michael and his driver instantly. Another bomb came hurtling toward Dan and David's car. This time, they couldn't avoid it. Their vehicle flipped in the explosion, but they survived with minor injuries. Moments later, the creeper arrived in his truck, honking furiously as he charged at them. David stepped out with his rifle, ready for a final showdown. Dan followed, warning David to remain calm as the creeper could sense fear. Spotting Michael's truck, Dan decided to use the special gun himself. Meanwhile, the creeper, wielding his axe, slowly approached David. David fired a shot, but the creeper deflected it with his axe. David fired again, this time knocking off the creeper's hat. Enraged, the creeper prepared to attack. As David aimed for a third shot, the creeper hurled a dart, which struck David's rifle, rendering it useless. Now left with only a handgun, David braced himself as the creeper lunged toward him. At the last moment, Dan managed to fix the special gun and fired at the creeper. Distracted, the creeper turned his attention to Dan, but the gun jammed. Taking advantage of the situation, the creeper attacked Dan with his axe. Despite Dan's efforts, the creeper overpowered him, decapitating him in a single swing. Seeing this from a distance, David realized his only option was to run. As night fell, Jillian was certain the creeper would come for her. She armed herself with a shotgun and prepared for the final confrontation. She spotted headlights outside and assumed it was the creeper, but when she opened the door, it was Buddy. He informed her that Addison had been taken by the creeper. Meanwhile, trapped in the truck's cargo area, Addison heard a commotion outside. She quickly hid under a white sheet, pretending to be dead. However, the creeper immediately uncovered her and grabbed her, preparing to eat her. As the creeper turned to fetch a knife, Addison seized the opportunity to hide. When the creeper found her again, Addison activated a trap on the passenger seat. A spear shot out and pierced the creeper's head, causing him to let out a horrific scream. The spear even destroyed one of his eyes. Addison used the distraction to escape, dodging traps as she leaped out of the truck. She ran as fast as she could, but the creeper pursued her. He stumbled and fell, revealing that Dan had managed to shoot off one of his wings earlier. Still, the creeper managed to throw a dart at Addison, but it missed by inches. Furious, the creeper grabbed a knife attached to a rope and threw it with all his might. His impaired vision caused him to miss again, though the knife snagged Addison's jacket, causing her to fall. As the creeper charged at her with his axe, a passing truck hit him, saving Addison. She got up and ran without looking back. For the first time, the creeper, who terrorized others, found himself helpless. Enraged, he killed the truck driver to heal his injuries. The creeper then went to Addison's home to retrieve his severed hand. He found it buried with a mocking note from Jillian that read, "I know what you are." Enraged, the creeper crushed the hand into pieces. With only a few days left before his 23-year hibernation, the creeper decided to focus on larger targets, sparing Addison for now. Meanwhile, Addison, having narrowly escaped, reunited with Buddy and her grandmother. In the end, Buddy and Addison embraced, confessing their love for each other. What did you think of this strange and terrifying movie? Let us know in the comments, and see you in the next video.